Most people think that the biggest unfair advantages in this life are things that you were born with: natural talent, the perfect race, being born with a trust fund, or even being in the perfect zip code. But you and I both know people who had absolutely everything and amounted to nothing. But you also know people who had nothing and in the end left this world with everything. The real advantage, something that feels so illegal that it shouldn't exist, isn't something you do. It isn't something that you were born with, but it's something within. While you are out here grinding 12 hours a day in this Groundhog Day loop, where you are living the same 6 months again and again and again, the top 0.1% have this unfair advantage that makes reality bend to them. Today I'm going to show you exactly what that unfair advantage is and exactly how to implement it in your life. But with all that being said, it's time that we go to the point of this video. It's a slideshow. We're here. So the overview in this video is, firstly, I'm going to debunk the idea that the unfair advantage is something external. By external, I mean, the amount of money that your family has, the race that you were born, all these other things that people say are unfair advantages. I'm going to be using Zimbabwe, the place that I grew up, as a case study. The next point, understanding the universe, multidimensional sequence of events, getting into the actual unfair advantage, and Fergie time. For those of you who don't know what Fergie time is, I'm a Man United supporter. So Fergie time was essentially this phenomenon where, for some reason, Man United would win games right at the end. Regardless of whether we deserve to win the game, we would win it right at the end. Sorry, I was just fixing something. So first, debunking the idea that the unfair advantage is something external. See, I grew up in Zimbabwe where external reality was broken. Quite literally, there was no order in our reality. Yes, there were unfair advantages, but looking at the things, we had inflation rates up to, it depends how long of a time frame you look at these inflation rates, but the longest time frame with the highest amount is 70 billion% inflation rate in Zimbabwe. Realistically speaking, unfair advantages would mean, and if advantages were external, it would mean that everyone would fail, right? In Zimbabwe, the external reality was broken. There was absolutely no order. There's no good job market. There's no good economy. Not even you could. I'm telling you what's happened to people. People would have $100,000 in their bank account. The next day they would wake up and the government said, "Oh no, your $100,000 is now 100,000 bond," which in Zimbabwe has the same purchasing power, but everywhere else in the world, absolutely nothing. See, I grew up, I saw the economy collapse in real time multiple times. I remember when I was 10 years old. Was I 10 in 2008? No, I was 5 years old. Damn. I was 5 years old, and my parents went to go buy bread, and they bought bread with a $100 trillion note. See, a few years back, bread was $1, and it got to $100 trillion. So I don't even know what the true inflation rate of Zimbabwe was for us to be getting to the point where we were making $1 trillion notes. It's not even that people had $1 trillion. There was $1 trillion note. See, if external circumstances were the rule, everyone should have failed. But in Zimbabwe, I saw outliers, and they continue to be outliers. And see, there are no common externalities such as background, education, family, schooling with the outliers that are in Zimbabwe. However, all I know about them is that they all had a common unfair advantage that didn't care about the Zimbabwean dollar. See, what you need to realize about this unfair advantage is it has no care whatsoever about what happens in this physical plane. Or in fact, what happens in the physical plane is of no importance to this unfair advantage. This unfair advantage can overcome any physical disadvantage. So, unfair advantages aren't to do with the external things that you have in this life, because there are people who have everything. They have the opportunities, they have the family that can put them in the perfect position, they have the money, they have the brains, they have the skill, and still they fail. Still, they might just start doing drugs, whatever it may be, they start doing all those things, right? But there are people who have nothing, but they always win. They came from a point where they were in the ghetto, they had 60 cents to their name, but they won. now they're at $1. Then they won again, now they're at $5. Then they won again, now they're at 100. Then they won again, now they're at the business. See, unfair advantages, people like to think of race. Oh, I'm black. Oh, this person's white, so they can do it. They like to think about so many things, these external things on the physical plane that appear to be unfair advantages, but that is just a poor understanding of the mechanisms of the universe. So now going into the next section, understanding the universe. See, the universe isn't random, though it may seem so. It's not random. The only reason why it appears random to us is because we don't understand what is happening. We don't understand the calculations behind everything. We don't understand the reason behind anything. As throughout the years, as I've been studying this information about how the universe works, how to create your own reality, or rather how to tune into a reality, I've realized that chance isn't real. There's no such thing as luck. There's no such thing as things happening by chance. For every cause, or for every effect, there's a cause. For every cause, there's an effect. Just because you don't know the effect doesn't mean that, just because you don't know the cause doesn't mean that there was no cause, right? See, an amazing thing. Let me know. In fact, I'm going to give you an example. An amazing thing, or an interesting example is, let's say when someone just says, oh, the universe hates me, I'm so unlucky, right? We think that they're just genuinely unlucky. Things just happen out of nowhere. And on the surface level, things happen to them out of nowhere. You even think, knowing that there's cause, or knowing the law of cause and effect, you even think that this person's unlucky, this person defies this law. But what you need to understand is that people who believe that they're always unlucky, they have a state of consciousness. They have conviction in the idea that they are unlucky. Because they have conviction in the idea that they are unlucky, the universe has no option but to bring about circumstances and experiences that reflect that idea of them being unlucky. What you need to realize about conviction is what is faith in the Bible. People think that faith is trusting, right? We have associated faith to trust, where there's doubt involved, and you can just be like, I trust that God will pull through. The reason why trust isn't used in place of faith is because trust and faith are not the same thing. If you look at the etymology of the word of faith, it is more akin to knowing, to have conviction. To best describe conviction, conviction is when you know something is going to happen. See, there's a light here for my lamp. When I switch it off, I don't think that, it might switch off. I don't trust that, I trust it's going to switch off, but it might malfunction. I know it's going to switch off, and then it switches off, right? So, nothing in this world is random. Everything happens because of something. Behind every act, behind every effect is the finest accuracy. Nothing happens by chance. And for things to not happen by chance, there have to be laws of this world. And the laws of this world are called universal laws. See, these laws are immutable. I'll get into them being immutable in about a minute or so. But I want you to look at nature. When you look at nature, there's no struggle. There is no strife. Things flow effortlessly. The tree drops its leaves. The ground collects the leaves, transfers it into whatever base nutrients. It nourishes the ground, X, Y, and Z, and it's just this whole cycle, right? The reason why things flow effortlessly in a perfect manner in nature is because nature abides by the laws of the universe, so things go easy for it. The people who have the easiest, most harmonious lives, where they're successful and they enjoy their lives, it doesn't happen because they're lucky. It happens because, whether it's conscious or unconsciously, they live in accordance to the universal laws. Living in accordance to the universal laws is like swimming downstream in a river. It's likely that you are trying to do your things your own way. You have your own conceptualizations of how you think the world should work. And because your own conceptualizations aren't the same as the way that the world actually works, you are now swimming upstream. You are trying to force things upon yourself. See, going against the laws of this universe is like being Sisyphus, pushing the boulder uphill. We will push it. And he may have gotten it up to the top of the mountain, but you won't. It'll roll 5 meters forward up the mountain, and then it'll fall down. You can't defy the laws of this reality. You can't. But you can live in accordance to them. Now, to get into the most important law of the reality that we live in, that I'm going to focus on today, as you can see at the bottom, it's the law of correspondence. This law is essentially as within, as without. I don't know why it's showing like that, but damn. It's as within, as without. As within, oh, what? As within, as without. As without, as within. See, what is within will invariably materialize regardless of what is happening externally. The best way to conceptualize this is by looking at a mirror. The mirror will never smile before you do. Right? Imagine looking in a mirror and expecting it to smile, and you're looking at it like this. Like, it's stupidity. It's borderline insanity. The mirror is never going to smile before you do. However, people expect their life to change before they do. They expect something externally to change before they change. Before they change something internally, right? There's this lovely quote from James Allen where he says that people are satisfied with themselves but dissatisfied with their lives. And I love that quote because it doesn't make sense how people can do that. People do not see that they are connected. They and their life, they are one. Right? There's no difference between your life and you. The only reason why you see this difference is because you are focusing on things on a lower level of existence. You are looking at things on the physical plane where polarity exists, where there's hot and cold, where there's bad life and good life, where there's good situation and where there's bad situation. Above the physical realm, there is no such thing as a bad situation. Everything is one. See, the difference between hot and cold is a rate of vibration, but they are one, right? To take it even further, everything in this world is made out of the same thing, and that is consciousness, that is energy. And the difference between you and I isn't what we're made of. It's simply our rate of vibration. Likewise, the difference between the water that's in this bottle and the water vapor that's in the air isn't what it's made out of, but it's its rate of vibration. I did that because I was thirsty. So, you and your reality are one. You and whatever you want to improve are one. You and your business are one. So you can't expect your business to improve without you first improving internally, right? So this is the law that I'm going to focus on today, the law of correspondence, as within, as without, as without, as within. So I want you to keep this in mind. So you're probably thinking, okay, how do I change what is within? Right. Now I'm going to show you how to change what is within. But I'm going to be doing it through the multi-dimensional sequence of events. See, when you go to the average person, I'm actually going to scroll up. I don't want you to be reading that as I'm explaining this. When you look at the average person, or you ask the average person, like, okay, what determines the effects that happen in their life? And they'll correctly say it's cause and effect. However, they think that the cause is action. So they'll say that the reason why their life is in a certain way is because of certain actions, certain things that are happening on the physical plane, right? They'll say that the cause of their business doing well is because they took this action. The cause of their business doing terribly is because this action, someone took this action against them and it made it so that, the taxes are terrible, the economy is terrible, it's just not a good environment to have business. So that is the reason why they've given. But that is just a poor level of understanding, because a simple question you could ask to immediately show why that is a poor level of understanding is there anything behind action? What causes action? Is action like the true cause? No, there's emotions behind action, there's certain mental nudges behind action, there are reasons why people take an action. So is it action that's the cause, or is it those reasons? Is it those mental nudges? Now, where do those mental nudges come from? Do they just come from nowhere, or they come from something else? That something else is exactly what I'm going to get into when we're talking about the multi-dimensional sequence of events. So over here we have the multi-dimensional sequence of events. Essentially what the multi-dimensional sequence of events is how reality unfolds itself, looking at all realms of existence.
Are you a good
Rounds are making noise. So when you look at the multi-dimensional sequence of events, at the top is frequency. Frequency leads to your intuition. Intuition leads to mental nudges. Your mental nudges lead to action, and then action leads to reality. So essentially what your frequency is two things. Your frequency is your level of awareness. So when people say that, oh, high frequency isn't being the happiest person in the room. It isn't being excited. It isn't being ecstatic. It's simply having a high awareness of how things work, right? If you were to conceptualize, let's say an anime, you're watching an anime and you have Satoru Gojo, and you conceptualize that nigga as high frequency, obviously, because that nigga is the don in that anime, right? And he isn't always the happiest person, though he is quite a playful person, right? He isn't always the happiest person. Him being high frequency in that anime universe has nothing to do with his energy, and more to do so with his awareness of how things work, his ability to affect things. High frequency isn't your energy. Well, high frequency isn't your emotion. Oh, I'm happy, because you're not going to be happy all the time. High frequency is more so an awareness of how things work. The second part about having a high frequency, the second part included in your frequency is your state of consciousness. And if you've watched any of my other videos, if you haven't, welcome. But if you watch them, you'll know that there are 7 keys of your state of consciousness. And what those keys are your beliefs, convictions, expectations, emotionally charged thoughts, perceptions, reactions, and your attention, right? So all these 7 things culminate into your state of consciousness, and your state of consciousness is the causal thing of what is going on in your life. So your state of consciousness will lead to your intuition, right? So what's your intuition? Your intuition are just where it's like you have that gut feeling, right? Oh, you have that gut feeling that something's going to happen there. And there's no words to describe your gut feeling. You just feel negatively about something. You don't even have a reason at that point. You just feel negatively. Or you feel good. You just think, oh, let me apply for this. Something good is going to come from it. But if you were asked to articulate why you think there's something good is going to come from it, you wouldn't be able to do it, right? So that's your intuition. And people like to say that your intuition is never wrong. That's true. That's untrue. Your intuition is objective. It's neither wrong or right. Your intuition is never wrong for where your frequency has established you. So if you have a bad frequency, your intuition will never be wrong according to that bad frequency. But your intuition, your gut feeling is wrong all the time. The reason being is, let's say you want to start a business. You want to make 10K a month. You may be facing, oh yeah, by the way, if you're a 6-figure entrepreneur who knows that they have an internal subconscious block that is blocking the amount of revenue that they've been making, and they want to remove that subconscious block, click the first link in the description and apply to work with me. I work with exactly those types of people. So your intuition is not wrong for where your frequency, your state of consciousness has put you. People like to say that, oh, my gut feeling is never wrong. Your gut feeling is wrong all the time. There were numerous times when my gut feeling was wrong. There are numerous times where I've wanted to make a specific amount, and then I'll have the intuition like, oh, do this. And that intuition leads to things falling apart. Why? Because I was programmed at a state of consciousness level, looking here at frequency. I was programmed for a reality that matched my state of consciousness. That was a reality of scarcity, a reality of lack, a reality of only making a certain amount of money, even though I wanted to make double that. So that state of consciousness leads to your intuition. Intuition can be wrong. And in fact, most people, your intuition is always going to lead to the life that you're living. So if your intuition leads to your reality, the life that you're living, intuition can be wrong, because is everyone in the world living a life that they want to live? No. Most people don't live a life that they want to live. They live a life that just happens to fall into their lives, that just happens rather than a life by design. So their intuition has led to that life, meaning that their intuition cannot be always right. If it was always right, we'd all be millionaires, we'd all be in lovely relationships, and we'd all have the career that we love. But that's not true, right? So your intuition leads to mental nudges. See, now mental nudges are now things that are articulate, things that you can hear. Like, oh, just change this thing on your website. Change this word in the title. I think you won't even know why you think it does, but change this word in the title. It'll perform better. Or in the case of relationships, a woman should have a fantastic guy in her life come in, but she would have the state of consciousness of being used to toxicity. That is what her state of consciousness is programmed to. So that is what her reality will be. So when that guy who challenges that state of consciousness comes, she will be like, oh, he's amazing. I know I should like him. There's nothing wrong with him. But for some reason, I just don't like him. It doesn't feel right. And they start getting weird icks. Oh, the way he combs his hair. It's like, nigga. Oh my gosh. They all have the intuition. Oh, something doesn't feel right. But it should feel right because they're in a lovely situation with a lovely guy who will treat them like a princess. But it just doesn't feel right. That's their gut feeling telling them, it doesn't feel right. That's another instance where your gut feeling can be wrong. Right? There are a lot of men who are used to the devils of this world. They're used to the promiscuous girl. You're teasing me. They're used to the promiscuous girls. And now when a good one comes along, it doesn't feel right. It's not exciting. Nah, she ain't for me. She's too boring. That's your intuition. That's your gut feeling proving you wrong. But anyways, I was talking about mental nudges. Sorry for getting a bit. I'm not sorry for anything. But I apologize to absolutely nobody. But yeah, so your mental nudges are more sort of things that you can articulate. Actions like, do this. You don't know why, but it's like, do this. Whereas your intuition is more sort of feeling, whether it's negative, positive, excited, whatever it may be. So your mental nudges lead to actions. Obviously, do this. Reach out to this person. Then you actually reach out to the person. Now, when you've reached out to the person, that is the first thing that you can see in this physical plane. This is an action. And now that action leads to the reality that unfolds. So people will only be able to see the action, and they'll say that, oh, action is the cause of reality. Well, no, action is a midwife for all of these things, from frequency down to intuition to mental nudges, and then action, and then reality, right? Action is not the cause. It is only a cog in the system of reality creation. So that's why it's called the multi-dimensional sequence of events, right? And now there's also a reason. I'm going to explain it briefly why just changing the action is not going to improve your life, right? See, when you have a state of consciousness or frequency that is, let's say, tuned to making $5,000 a month, you're going to have the intuition of someone who makes $5,000 a month. Then you're going to have the mental nudges of someone that makes $5,000 a month. Now, because you think that action is the cause of reality, you're going to be looking at Alex Hormozi. He makes hundreds of millions of dollars a year. So you're like, oh, let me take the actions of someone who makes hundreds of millions of dollars a year. But then you end up still making $5,000 a month. You may make a bit of progress. You may make $6,000. But for some reason, things will just go down. Things will fall apart in your back and making $5,000 a month, even though you did everything correctly, right? There are a lot of people, they're toiling away, they're working in jobs that they don't like. Let's say they're nurses, whatever, the hours are ridiculous. They have the frequency of someone who's struggling, who doesn't have enough money. So naturally they have the intuition of someone who's struggling, who doesn't have enough money. Naturally they have the mental nudges of someone who's struggling and doesn't have enough money. However, they just read Rich Dad Poor Dad, so now they start taking actions of rich people. But for some reason, those actions that rich people take have produced the reality that they've always been living, one of scarcity and not having enough. See, we see this in relationships. You have the frequency of toxicity, that you don't deserve a good partner, someone who loves you, right? you're avoidant or you're an anxious person. So the people who they always leave you, they always abandon you, right? So you have that frequency. Naturally, it leads to the anxious intuition. Naturally, it leads to the mental nudges of an anxious person. However, you take the actions like I want to become more secure. I want to attract a better partner who's present, who's secure. But for some reason, in reality, you end up with a partner that's avoidant. It's like they're the very last or the furthest thing from secure. And people start wondering, and this is now when people say that, oh, God just doesn't want me to have this thing. God wants you to have everything that you need. He wants you to succeed. But you don't want yourself to succeed. The reason being is because you've given yourself a state of consciousness where you've allowed yourself to adopt a state of consciousness that doesn't lead to your reality. So, action is not the cause of reality. It's your frequency. That is the true domino. And that is the highest point of leverage. Because what happens is these things flow into each other. You don't have to physically try to have good intuition. You don't have to physically try to have the mental nudges. Do you physically try to have the mental nudges that you have now? No, they just come there. Why? Because of the state of consciousness that you programmed yourself at initially. Right? So if somehow you are able to get the state of consciousness, what is within, this is what is meant by what is as within as without. Your state of consciousness is within. So if you are able to get the within, the good frequency, the good state of consciousness, you are going to get the without, the good life, the harmonious life, the abundant life. Right? So your frequency, to sum up what I've said, your frequency is what is within. It's a signal that you emit to the universe. So with all that being said, reality is an effect. So you will never be able to change an effect by changing an effect. And that is how people try to change their reality. All the examples I give, the person who's struggling for money doesn't change their state of consciousness, but they try do certain actions. They try play with reality in order to get a new result. You can't change an effect by changing an effect. Imagine there's a pot of boiling water. The effect is the gas that's heating up the pot, and now the water is boiling. Now, the equivalent of trying to change your reality by changing your actions is like not turning off the boiling or the gas and letting it boil, letting the water boil, and then just adding ice. See, you can add ice. It's probably going to cool down for a bit, but then that ice is going to be boiled. Why? Because you cannot run away from the gas. Likewise, you will never be able to run away from your state of consciousness. You will never be able to outrun your state of consciousness. You'll never be able to outact your state of consciousness. No, you're not going to do it. You're not going to do it. You trying to outact your state of consciousness is like you trying to run away from that monster in your dreams. Have you ever been dreaming? The way you start running in your dreams when you're running away from something, it's like your legs are jelly. You're walking like... it doesn't make sense. That's you trying to run away from your state of consciousness. So it's very likely that if you're a smart let me not say smart person, because now I'll offend a few of you. And I don't want to offend my loyal followers. So it's very likely that from this, you can kind of deduce what the unfair advantage is, but I'm going to tell you. The true unfair advantage is having a frequency, a state of consciousness that is in alignment of what you desire. See, the reason why this is so important is because if you have the state of consciousness, the frequency of what you desire, you will naturally have the intuition of someone who has what you desire. Then you have the mental nudges of someone who also has what you desire, and then you will take the action of someone who has what you desire, and then naturally you are going to get the reality that you desire. But see, this isn't going to be a hard work process. This is just going to be something that unfolds naturally, and you're going to see certain synchronicities, certain coincidences, and say, wow. But you won't be saying wow because you know how things work. But other people will be like, wow, they just got lucky. Look at how that thing just flowed into their life. It's also another reason why people break their New Year's resolutions. See, people never change. They never make the resolution to change their state of consciousness. They just make the resolution, I want to lose 10 kgs this year. So they start taking the actions of someone who they see as slim. So they start going to the gym every day. They start eating healthy. And they do that for maybe a week, if that, probably a few days, and they start waning off. And eventually they're back to where they are. They're not going to the gym, they're not eating clean, and they start saying, oh, start making excuses. Oh, my metabolism. Oh, I don't have time. But the reason why their actions, their efforts to change their reality didn't work is because they didn't actually attack the situation at the cause. They went to the midwife here, right? Think about action as a messenger, right? There's the initial message, and then there's a message that is heard, right? You could have the best messenger ever, but if the initial message is in French, the end message isn't suddenly going to become Chinese. No, you need Chinese, then a good messenger, and then the final message will be in Chinese. Now you're probably thinking, the messenger can know different languages, but reality doesn't work that way. Wasn't my best example, I can't lie. Oh, what's going on here? Oh, my thing isn't updating. It's not updating. That's kind of thing. I switched to this because it's not updating. Let me hope it updates. Okay, it's updating now. I was getting scared. So the true unfair advantage is having a frequency in alignment to that which you desire. To that which you desire. So now I've actually explained this, but whatever. How to align your frequency to that which you want. First of all, you need to have high awareness. See, high awareness isn't necessary. What I mean by awareness is awareness of how the world works, how the universe works, how the multi-dimensional sequence of events. It's not necessarily necessary because there are people who have never picked up a book on metaphysics, on quantum physics, but they're able to get everything that they want in this life. And it's simply because they follow these things unconsciously, or they follow them without knowing that this is what they're following. However, if you have higher awareness, it adds to that unfair advantage because now you can consciously attain this unfair advantage in literally any area of your life, whether it be relationships, whether it be in business, whether it be posting social media, whether it be traveling to other places, right? The second thing that you need is conviction in what you desire is unfoldment. The idea that it's going to happen. I don't know how, but I know it's going to happen. That is the faith that is talked about in the Bible. Jesus says, have faith, and faith can move mountains, right? There's a quote here on my wall. It's Mark 9 verse 23. It says, if you can, say Jesus, everything is possible for one who believes, right? Believing and faith are like synonyms in the Bible. He who believes, he who has faith. Believing isn't, I trust it's going to happen. It's knowing. What do you believe about yourself? Yeah, you're black. But the point is you probably aren't black. I don't know. Sometimes I'm a bit unhinged. I was talking to myself. But anyways, all the greats, they knew they were going to be great. They had conviction in the unfoldment of their desires. See, and they may be humble. They may try aura farm in interviews saying, I didn't know I was going to get this far. But damn, God is good. But you and I know deep down that they knew it was going to happen, right? So with all that being said, that is the unfair advantage in this life, right? And now, for my football heads out there, I'm a Man United fan, so I just had to include this because I made this link while I was scripting this video. Fergie time came from this unfair advantage. Again, for those of you who don't know what Fergie time is, Fergie time was essentially this phenomenon where Man United would be losing a game or drawing a game, and now they're in stoppage time right at the end of the game, and suddenly they score 2 goals and win the game, right? Suddenly the ref gives them 10 minutes of added time. So you can't explain it, but it just happens. And it happened enough for it to not be luck. It became a phenomenon that was well known. That is why it's called Fergie time. And this is Alex Ferguson here, by the way. See, Fergie time wasn't luck. It was quite literally frequency dominance. They had mastered the art of having the frequency of which they had won the game. So see, Alex Ferguson, he didn't hope for a goal in the 90th minute or past the 90th minute. He demanded it from the universe. And what you need to know about a state of consciousness is that states of consciousness are contagious. So what happened is he infected the players, even the opposition, with the idea that Man United were going to win the game. Not Man United could win the game. Man United were going to win the game. And what that did is it led to inexplicable things happening. The defender scores an own goal. Literally an own goal from 30 yards out. And you're just like, how does this happen? The ball ricochets in the box, hits one player, hits another, hits 5 other players, and somehow ends up in the back of the net. All these things that are just inexplicable just happen. The referees, for some reason, they just give more time. In fact, there's this interview of a referee that was saying when Man United were losing, and he was a referee, it's like he felt this urge to give more added time. And it wasn't this thing of like, oh, Ferguson said give more added time, but it was this thing of like, it's like for some reason it just happened. They couldn't explain it. It was just like, damn, like the energy in that stadium was crazy. And see, what would happen is you would infect the players, even the opposition, the idea that Man United were going to win the game. And naturally, things that didn't make sense would start happening. Like opposition would make mistakes that you'd only expect to be made at under 15 level, right? So now this happened within the players like a few times. Man United would win late, Fergie time. And now opposition or fans, supporting fans, opposition fans started to observe this. And through observation, it brought about an emotional charge. And the Man United fans was this positive emotional charge whereby, we're going to win either way. So they had conviction. Their state of consciousness was altered to the idea that, you know what, we are going to win this game either way. Now, the opposition fans had the opposite. They were like, damn, we're going to lose this game either way. It had become a truth in their subconscious mind. And there are no truths in reality other than the truths, or other than what your subconscious mind has accepted as true. What your subconscious mind has accepted as true are things that you have experienced or observed that have high emotional charges, or things that have happened repeatedly. So with Fergie time, it's a case of both. Man United won games late repeatedly, and each time it happened, there was an emotional charge. So what happened is these fans observed this, or they experienced it. So now they also believed in Fergie time. So think about it like this. In Old Trafford, there would be 75,000 people in that stadium. Imagine 75,000 people in a stadium all thinking the same thing. All knowing that no matter what happens, Man United is going to win the game. Like, imagine how reality would have no choice but to bend to the will of the 75,000 people in the stadium. And you know what it would probably be? It was probably a thing of like, in the stadium you have 60,000 United fans, you have 15,000 away fans. The 60,000 United fans all believe that they're going to win. The 15,000 away fans, they're like, we hope we don't lose. They have conviction in nothing. They're just scared. And now it's an overwhelming majority who have conviction in the idea that Man United is going to win the game. And reality bends to the will of the 60,000, including the players and including Sir Alex Ferguson. See, Sir Alex Ferguson, he didn't have luck. He just had the unconscious, or maybe conscious, you never know if he knows this stuff, but from what I know, he had the unconscious use of the unfair advantage that I've shared in this video. See, with all that being said, that's the unfair advantage. When you use the unfair advantage, reality has no choice but to bend to your will. It doesn't matter if you're disabled. It doesn't matter if you're black. It doesn't matter if you're Chinese. It doesn't matter if you're poor. It doesn't matter if you were born in Zimbabwe like I was. When you have the unfair advantage, reality quite literally gets on its knees for you. And with all that being said, that is the unfair advantage. That's the advantage so unfair that it feels like it should be illegal.